everyone, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the next installment of my bookshelf tour. For those of you who've been following along, I've been filming one shelf at a time over the last couple of months and sharing them with you. This allows me to give you an in-depth overview of what I do have on my shelves and spend a little bit more time talking about some of the books, more so than I would if I just filmed the entire thing at once, which would be very overwhelming. There is a playlist that has all of my bookshelf tours, from the full ones that I've done in the past to the individual shelf tours, so you are welcome to check those out. We're currently up to bookshelf 10, and I'm going to jump straight into an overview of the shelf, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about the books. This is the next shelf. It's the rest of my Matthew Reilly collection, plus my Witcher books, and a few Brandon Sanderson books. Yes, that is a picture of me when I was younger. And on this shelf, there's only a few little items. You know, aside from the picture, there is this candle, the Sunai from B.E. Schwab's, oh gosh, I forget the name of the series. It's the one that begins with this Savage song. My mind is completely blanking. And also this mask, which is, I think, a bat or it's a fox. I can't remember, but it's gorgeous and I love it, so I keep it here. Okay, so now you've seen an overview of the shelf. You sort of know what you're going to be getting in this video, and let's talk about the books. Last week you'll have seen me talk about the first 2/3 of my Matthew Reilly collection, so we're just going to finish it out with the books that I have. This is where you see that I have some duplicates of books. So the first two books are the first two books in the Scarecrow series. I have another copy of Ice Station, which is my favourite of all his books, and Area 7, which is my second favourite of all of his books. I love the Scarecrow series up until the end of this book. The third book shall not be named. These are the most recent cover editions for the series, and I do really like them, which is why I bought them again, even though I have my original covers. And then I have a set of hardcovers of these books, but I don't care because I love these books. I also have a copy of Troll Mountain. I actually bought this one before I bought the hardcover edition, and it just turned out that after I bought this one, I saw the hardcover edition and it was about $5. So I bought it because why not? I've got doubles of everything else. I might as well have doubles of those ones too. And then these were the other Matthew Reilly books that I bought more copies and editions of. I forget when these ones were released. Hold on. So these were 2009 editions. They're hardcovers. They came with black covers. They all look really nice together. They have ridiculous stickers on the front that I can't take off, which is really frustrating. There is Contest, Temple, Ice Station, and Area 7. Next up we have my Rainbow Rowell books. I came to Rainbow Rowell, like a lot of people, with Fangirl, which I absolutely adored. This was not my original copy of Fangirl. I did lend it to a friend and I never got it back, but you know what, that happens. So when I went to the Melbourne Writers Festival one year and she was there, I bought myself a new copy so I could get it signed. I relate so hard to this book, it's not even funny. So for anyone who's unfamiliar, Fangirl is the story of Kath, who is in college, and she is obsessed with a very famous book series, so much so that she writes fan fiction for it, and she's one of the most prolific and well-known fan fiction authors for this series, and she's in the middle of completing a story that she had started. And she's trying to do it before the final book is released. And while she's at college, she falls in love, and it's that sort of story. But interspersed with that, you get the story of Simon and Baz, who are the characters from her favourite book series, which is very much like Harry Potter. Then you have Carry On, which is the Simon and Baz story. So Rainbow Rowell wrote her own version of Simon and Baz because it was quite popular in Fangirl, and this is what we got, and it's great. It is very reminiscent of that other series, but it is its own thing, and it is delightfully fun. And it was then followed up by Wayward Son, which I didn't enjoy as much as I enjoyed Carry On, but was still a really fun time. I also found a copy of Kindred Spirits by Rainbow Rowell, which was a little short story that she wrote around the time of the release of Star Wars. And it's about people who are obsessed with Star Wars, and it is delightfully fun and entertaining. And finally, I have Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell, which is her graphic novel, and it is the story of two friends who've worked at the same pumpkin patch every year for the last few years, and this is the final time that they'll be working together as they're about to go off to college, and they decide to spend the evening together. It is absolutely delightful. Next up I have my Margaret Rogerson books. These are young adult fantasy books that I actually really enjoyed. Fantasy is very hit or miss with me, especially young adult fantasy, but I love these ones, and they have gorgeous covers. So the first one is an Enchantment of Ravens, and then you have Sorcery of Thorns. So Enchantment of Ravens is a fae story. This one is more of a magic story, and I actually really loved Sorcery of Thorns. It is so great and had really fantastic characters and a really interesting magic system. Next up, we have my Brandon Sanderson books. So the very first Brandon Sanderson book I read was Warbreaker, and it's huge, and I really enjoyed this book. I know that there is potentially a sequel coming, but that it's a ways off. I am neither desperate to read that nor unwilling to pick it up. Brandon Sanderson's books are huge, but he manages to tell the story in a really interesting way. A close second or a adjoining favorite is Steelheart, which is science fiction and is about superheroes living in the world, and I really like this. I like superhero stories where the good and the bad guys have no real clear delineation, and that's definitely what this is. I have one of his shorts, Snapshot, which is a really great story about two detectives who live in a time where a snapshot of a crime can be taken and then can be relived by detectives who go in and try to figure out exactly what happened. This is a really fun, interesting, thought-provoking read. And then I also have the collection of Legion, The Many Lives of Stephen Leeds. So Stephen Leeds is schizophrenic, perhaps, and he's for hire. And it's not Stephen who's for hire, but the different personalities that reside in his head who all have different skills, from being soldiers to being psychology experts to being librarians. They all live inside his head and he calls upon them when he needs to figure things out. So it's a really interesting story. So there are 3 short stories in this collection. They were all wonderful. This one, again, was very thought-provoking. I think I do like Sanderson's science fiction more than his fantasy, just because I'm not willing to be thrown into the deep end with his ginormous series, which is why Warbreaker is the only fantasy book of his that I've read. And then finally, I have Skyward, which is the first book in his young adult science fiction series and is also delightful and features a talking spaceship. Who doesn't love a talking spaceship? Then I have the first part of my Witcher collection by Andrzej Sapkowski. I do have 2 copies of The Last Wish, so I have the Netflix tie-in cover and also the original cover. Sword of Destiny, Blood of Elves, Time of Contempt, and Baptism of Fire. There are 3 more books which I do have that I'm planning on reading in December, and hopefully finishing off the series before the end of the year. I don't think I need to say too much about the Witcher saga, except that they're a fantasy series about a monster hunter who is himself something more than human, and they are delightfully dry in their humor, which is why I like them. So it's a very slow sort of fantasy, but the banter in it is fantastic, and I really enjoy all the characters. I also have this book, The Persistent Grappers of Fripp, which is by George Saunders, which was sent to me by a friend and is a delightful little morality story, and this is definitely due for a reread. I have 2 John Scalzi books on my shelves. I have Old Man's War, which is a science fiction series set in space, and it is about John Perry, who on his 75th birthday joins the army, and why they enlist elderly people is made readily apparent in the first half of the book. And this is a really confronting look at what war looks like and what people perceive to be the right thing to do. And then you have Lock-In, which is another science fiction story, and it is about a world where a mysterious disease has affected a portion of the population, essentially leaving them locked in their own bodies. These people have the ability to transfer their consciousness into host bodies. And aside from that science fiction element, it is also a mystery story and the story of an unlikely partnership to solve that mystery. I also have 4 Dead Queens by Astrid Scholte. This was a copy of the book that I won. So I originally had an arc of it, and then I won a hardback version of it, and I got it signed, which was really lovely. This is young adult sci-fi fantasy. And the last book on shelf 10 is my special edition of A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This is a series that I utterly adore. It's not necessarily my favorite of her series, but one that I do really enjoy, and I had to buy the anniversary edition because I really love the cover. Plus, it has beautiful embossing on the hardback and fan art on the end papers. So that is everything that is on bookshelf 10. My next installment of this will be bookshelf 11 and 12, which are my Star Wars shelves. So I'm going to do those all together because I might as well, because they are a distinct 2 shelves that are completely contained. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you are staying safe and healthy, and I will see you all in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.